No one wanted to help the paralyzed Navy SEAL. Then a nurse called him by his call sign. I still remember the moment the wheelchair stopped rolling. Right there in the hallway of Fort Bragg Medical Center, in front of everyone. The man in that chair had once carried wounded soldiers on his back. Now he couldn't even lift his own arm. And when he called out for help, 3 nurses walked right past him like he wasn't even there. But nobody was ready for what happened next. His name was Daniel Coleman, 34 years old. A former Navy SEAL from a small town outside Charleston, South Carolina. 2 tours overseas. A Purple Heart in a drawer he never opened. An IED had taken the use of his legs 18 months ago. His wife, Sarah, had stayed by his side through every surgery. But the hospital transfers, the therapy sessions, the endless waiting rooms had worn her down too. Daniel used to lead men into danger. Now he couldn't wheel himself to a window without help. The staff at this rehabilitation wing knew his diagnosis. Nobody bothered learning his name. To them, he was the guy in room 214. Just another chart. Just another number. Daniel never complained. He'd learned long ago that complaining didn't win wars. But some mornings, alone in that room, he wondered if anyone still saw him as a man at all. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, a new nurse walked onto the floor. And something about her felt different. Her name badge said R. Martinez. She was maybe 28, quiet, sharp-eyed. She moved through the hallway with purpose, like she'd worked somewhere far more demanding than this. Daniel barely noticed her at first. He'd stopped noticing new faces months ago. But that afternoon, when he pressed his call button and waited 20 minutes with no response, it was Rachel who finally walked in. Not the assigned nurse, her. "I'm sorry," she said. "That should never take this long." Daniel just nodded. He'd heard apologies before. They rarely meant anything. The next day, his physical therapy session got canceled without warning. Nobody explained why. His wheelchair cushion, worn thin, hadn't been replaced in months, despite 3 requests. A young boy in the next room, waiting to visit his grandfather, looked at Daniel through the open door. He tugged his mother's sleeve and whispered something. His mother shushed him quickly and pulled him away. Daniel caught only 3 words. "Why is he sad?" Nobody answered the boy. But Daniel couldn't stop thinking about that question either. Over the following weeks, things grew worse. The head administrator, a man named Gary Pruitt, seemed determined to move Daniel out of the rehab wing entirely. Too expensive, he said. Not enough progress to justify the bed. Sarah fought the paperwork every way she knew how, but she was exhausted, and Daniel could see it breaking her. One evening, Daniel overheard Pruitt speaking to another staff member near the nurse's station. "He's a lost cause. We need the space for patients who'll actually improve." Lost cause. The words landed like a blow harder than any injury he'd survived overseas. That night, Rachel stayed late. She sat beside his bed, not saying much, just checking his vitals slower than she needed to. Then she said something strange. "Bulldog 6, that was your call sign, wasn't it?" Daniel's whole body went still. Nobody outside his old team knew that name. Not the hospital records. Not even Sarah. "How?" he said quietly. "Do you know that?" Rachel didn't answer right away. She just looked at him like she was seeing someone from a memory she'd carried a long time. "Ramstein 2019, she finally said. "Field hospital. You probably don't remember me. I was the medic who stabilized your team leader after the extraction. You told me to keep pressure on the wound and never stop talking to him. You said if he heard a voice, he'd fight harder to stay alive." Daniel's eyes filled before he could stop them. He did remember that night. The chaos. The blood. A young medic who refused to let go. "He made it," Rachel said softly. "Because of what you taught me that night." Word spread fast through the rehab wing. A nurse and a patient, connected by a battlefield years ago and thousands of miles away. Suddenly people were listening. Suddenly, Gary Pruitt's quiet plan to discharge Daniel didn't look so easy to hide. Rachel requested a formal review of his case. She brought in his old commanding officer as a witness to his progress and his character. She stood in front of the hospital board and said plainly, "This man does not get abandoned. Not by his country. Not by us." Pruitt tried to argue budget numbers. But for the first time, someone in that building refused to look away. The next morning, the boy from down the hall knocked shyly on Daniel's door. He held out a drawing. A stick figure standing tall, saluting. "My teacher says you're a hero," the boy said. "Are you sad because nobody remembers?" Daniel could barely speak. "Nobody," he whispered. "Not anymore." 3 weeks later, Daniel's therapy resumed in full, with a new physical therapist and, more importantly, new attention paid to every part of his care. Rachel checked on him every single shift, never missing a day, never treating him like a chart number again. Sarah wept the day the hospital board reversed the discharge order. Not from exhaustion this time, but from relief that someone had finally fought for her husband the way she had been fighting alone for a year and a half. Daniel began sitting up straighter, smiling more, even laughing, once, at something the little boy said about superheroes. 6 months later, using leg braces and a walker, Daniel took 9 unassisted steps down that same hallway. Every nurse on the floor stood and watched. Even Gary Pruitt, from a distance, said nothing. Rachel stood at the end of the hallway, tears in her eyes, watching the man she once helped save on a battlefield now save himself, one careful step at a time. "You did that," Daniel said when he reached her. Breathless but standing. "No," Rachel answered. "You always could. Somebody just needed to remember your name." Daniel Coleman went home 8 months after that day, not fully healed, not without struggle ahead, but seen, respected, remembered, and sometimes the smallest act of kindness, one person choosing to truly see another, changes everything. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes kindness can change the world. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below.